Amen and amen.
Thank you. At this time, if you would join us in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I now call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please conduct the roll? Here.
Present. Here. Here.
Thank you. At this time, does the board have any amendments to the minutes from February 4th, March 9th, April 22nd, 27th, or 28th? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
All those in favor? All right, motion carries. Thank you. At this time for this evening, are there any amendments to the agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Brault.
I move that we remove under item 9 appointments, item A as in Apple, and under section 11 new business, item B as in boy from the agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries. And then can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, is there any concerns around the consent agenda? And if not, could I get a motion, please?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, motion carries. All right, at this time, we will move to our comments from the public. If I could please receive the sign-in sheet. Thank you. All right, for clarification, I do see we have some individuals listed here to offer budget comments. Would those need to be heard during the public hearing? Okay. All right, so as a reminder, when you come up to the podium, if you could please state your name and your address before you begin your remarks. Individuals will be granted 3 minutes. Those speaking on behalf of a group will be granted 5. All right, so first we have Michael Herbert.
Good evening. I'm Mike Herbert. I live at 201 Northwood Road. A couple of comments about the current lawsuit that's going on. I went online and read it. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to debate the issues of that. That's going to be in court. What I'm here to say is that the mayor of this city is suing the city of Washington that she's mayor of. The mayor is suing us, the taxpayers. We're going to be put on the dole for this, one way or another, either through legal fees or the $1 million that you're requesting. I cannot understand how you can sue the city and still be in the capacity as mayor. I could see it as a private citizen, but not sitting up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herbert. Next this evening is Dee Spear.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, and city staff. My name is Deborah Spear. I live at 1106 Respite Street, and I'm here to express concerns regarding what appears to be ongoing zoning and land use violations involving both the mayor's Market Street property, known as the Al Hotel, and the neighboring property, which is owned by Councilman Joe Javis. In May of 2025, exactly 1 year ago, I came to this governing body to voice my concerns about the mayor's property, and as of this past weekend, am still living with her ongoing violations of zoning laws, which negatively impact my property. The only thing that has changed from a year ago is the fact that her campaign buddy and neighbor, City Councilman Joe Davis, has taken a blatant disregard for our zoning laws with his hosting commercial events such as wedding receptions on his property. The citizens of Washington deserve consistent enforcement of zoning ordinances regardless of who owns the property or who holds elected office. According to the cities of Washington zoning regulations, properties located in a residential zoning district such as R9 are intended primarily for residential uses. While churches and certain institutions may have at one time been permitted on property, zoning protections for nonconforming uses are not indefinite. When a nonconforming use ceases operation for an extended period of time, the property reverts to the underlying zoning classification and permitted uses within that district. In the case of Councilman Davis's property, it appears the church structure ceased operations long ago and therefore reverted to the applicable R9 residential zoning requirements. Yet the property now appears to be functioning as a commercial-style wedding or event venue. If two elected officials are effectively operating interconnected event venues within residential zoning districts while simultaneously participating in city governance and discussing issues involving zoning enforcement and budget cuts to the Planning and Zoning Department, the public has a right to ask questions. Questions such as, are the zoning ordinance being enforced equally? Have the appropriate permits been obtained? Have parking, occupancy, event, and commercial use requirements been reviewed? And perhaps most importantly, would ordinary citizens be allowed to operate in the same manner without enforcement action? I encourage the city to fully investigate these activities, provide transparency to the public, and ensure that all properties within the city of Washington are operating in compliance with the zoning ordinance and any applicable permit requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spear.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Tyree.
at this time, well, I would ask that you would publicly recuse yourself from this next conversation. That will be based on what was just presented to us.
Okay.
When the public came to council before to speak about a potential zoning violation, that's where council and the mayor spoke directly to the manager, and we put the ball in the manager's court to move on to see if the public is being protected or if there's any merit to what has just been presented to us. When we hear something from the public like we did before, we can't just ignore it. So that's something that I would ask council to support. If there's a need for council to support, I would ask council to support that. But again, we've just been presented with a possible violation that, again, this is for safety-wise for our community. Is that something that council would need to support, or is just a word to move forward with looking into what was just presented?
I'll go ahead and respond, Councilman Tyree. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we have documented evidence that things are indeed occurring. Planning and Zoning has looked into this issue on both cases, whether it's one property or the other. And procedurally and by process, there's only two things we can do. Issue a notice of violation. That notice of violation has basically a 30-day cure period, or we can do a civil citation, which has a $200 day fine. We are doing both and whatever it takes to follow up and enforce the zoning ordinance.
I would also like to point out, because this did come to me over the weekend, and I did have to do some research, and I would like to submit this to you for record, just in case. When I first took office, there were some questions about the property that was just spoken to about, and there were some stop work orders done there as well too, and there was also, again, this was files that went back to when I first took office, but again, since it just came up over the weekend, I went back through to see. But this dates back, and I'll present this to you, not out loud to the public, but there were stop work orders with signed documentation from the councilman that was just spoken about. So I'm not sure if that helps. But again, these are the same measures that we took when another violation came to us that was kind of questioning the safety of the public. And with the amount of people that's being shown that can take up this property, that would question everything. And this property has come up in quite a few different legal conversations as well. So to hear this come up just Friday was kind of a shocker to me. But I'll submit this over to you if I can. Not saying you don't have it, but just in case you don't, you have everything that we're moving forward with. So this isn't a gotcha moment on anybody. Again, the public came forward. They let us know what they've seen. They've reached out to their councilmen as they elected us in office to, but we also have to put it in the right hands, and that's not us. So this is where we would move this along to our manager. Thank you.
All right, next this evening, we have Mike Kelly.
Good evening. Madam Mayor, City Councilman, I thank you in advance for hearing my concerns. I'm not here to beat a dead horse, but I'm also here to speak in opposition to the wedding/event venue that's being conducted at Market and 11th Street. I think Mr. Davis owns that. I think it's called Metzpa Manor. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I was told initially that they were having weddings and events there that were being held just for families and friends, and it was at no charge. Okay, no harm, no foul. But then I was pointed to a website that is there, and it's advertising for events up to 200 people outside, 100 people inside, for weddings, meetings, receptions. Receptions are BYOB, or we can cater the alcohol and the food independently, so people will be drinking, which I don't have a problem with that, but it could create problems. So again, I am in opposition to it, and I would like that to be on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. At this time, that concludes the public comment. Those who had signed up for the budget's comments will be addressed when we get to the public hearing on the budget this evening. All right, so at this time, there are no public hearings for zoning. We'll wait till 6 p.m. for our budget public hearing. Our next is a scheduled public appearance, Ms. Deborah Torrance from the Turnage Theater.
Thank you for having me. I'm going to hand you just a few documents. It's just an overview of everything we're doing. So we wanted to come and thank the city for its support in the economic development funding that you've provided to Beaufort County Arts Council, which is known as Arts of the Pamlico, located at the historic Turnage Theater. As you probably know, AOP provides cultural opportunities through initiation, support, and presentation of artistic programs in Beaufort County and the surrounding region. Past city grants of $13,368 have supported the provision of arts and cultural programs to the residents of Washington and the county. City funds allow us to secure state funds of $37,000 toward our annual fundraising need of $350,000, which we raise mainly through ticketing fees, sales of art, fundraisers and grants, and some private donations. Last year, we served more than 25,000 people at the Turnage Theater. That's compared to 12,000 in the 2018 to 2021 timeframe. The majority of users of your community theater reside in Washington. Arts of the Pamlico owns the building and has continued to invest in the building Grant writing is happening consistently, and we're seeking challenge grants that allow us to leverage matches. All we do benefits the city through beautification, programming, free and low-cost programs for youth and adults, including the array of free camps that are going to be available to Beaufort County kids all summer long with breakfast and lunch. And we also pay fees for utilities, recycling, and garbage services between $1,400 to $3,000 a month. So we appreciate your support, and we ask that you continue to support the Arts of the Pamlico. We are there to help bring additional grant dollars in, if you would like to write grants together to serve the city with events and activities at the theater, and to support the city in all that it does. And I'll stop there and ask if you have any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Does council have any questions? Thank you for all that you do and your volunteers over at Arts of the Pamlico.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, at this time, we'll move on to correspondence and special reports. Council should have in front of them purchase orders for greater than $50,000. Mr. Rory, are there any comments from yourself or Ms. Swindell on this matter?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Next would be budget transfers. Any comments, Mr. Rory?
No, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Council should have before them in their board packets their reports from boards, commissions, and committees for their review. All right, and then next will be appointments. Our appointment this evening will be for the Washington Electric Utilities Advisory Board. Do I have a motion from council?
Make a motion to appoint Mr. Zane Buckman to the Washington Electric Utility Advisory Board.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, at this time, we'll move into old business. First on our agenda this evening under old business is to accept the offer to purchase certain surplus real property located near 1054 East Main Street. Mr. Rory?
I think all the documents are presented. To be factual, there might be one little glitch in the Housing Authority property in that procedurally we missed the adoption of a resolution. However, that should not cause a problem moving forward. We've publicly advertised, received the bids. There were no upset bids provided. We've had confirmation of the check, and so we're ready to move forward with it.
Okay. All right, on the surplus real property located near 1054 East Main Street, do I have a motion from council?
I have a question. However, as you are, I'm out of order. So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Just wanting to ensure, this isn't a property that was already bid on or any other process to it, right? This is a whole new property. This is not something that kind of came under the radar all of a sudden, right?
There's two. This one is the Housing Authority? No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Okay, this is the little sliver.
This has been before council, I think, a couple months, but to answer your question, no.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All right, motion carries, thank you. All right, next is to accept the offer to purchase certain surplus real property located at Keys Landing and at the corner of 6th Street and Van Norden Street. Is there a motion from council?
Motion to approve.
All right, is there a second? Any discussion on this
Second.
item? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All right, motion carries. What's it?
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, next we will move to new business. First on our new business is to accept the additional funding for the medical district stormwater project.
Madam Mayor, can I
Councilman Tyree?
just to ensure, on the last one, I just had a brain moment, but I was not opposing now. I'd actually vote for, okay, just making sure.
Mr. Rory, is there any background for council on the additional funding for the medical district stormwater project?
I'd like Hope to give you a little quick briefing.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Willard.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Afternoon, sorry. So when we were doing the project, of course, the original original price estimate was at $3 million. When bids came in, it was exceeding that amount. So we had to finance the difference along with contribute funds. So Golden Leaf had told us that there was any funds left over from any of the projects, they would contribute. And they have come back to offer us an extra $1 million to offset our expenses and our cost. So do y'all have any questions?
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Willard?
Madam Mayor,
Councilman Peralt?
so we're accepting an additional $1 million towards the project, not allocating an additional?
That is correct. We are accepting an additional $1 million that Golden Leaf Foundation is going to give us towards this project.
And there's no match associated with the additional funding?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Willard. Do I have a motion from council?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any other discussion on this item? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right, this time we will move to discussion, tax rate, and budget. This is an item from Councilmember Davis, so at this time I'll yield the floor.
Basically, in February 2026, the council acted in alignment with a platform of which a record number of voters elected the current majority, including a publicly stated commitment of a 28% property tax reduction off the per $100 rate, taking the rate down from 48.5 cents to 37.5 cents. It was our headline fiscal promise of the term and was repeatedly stalled in council chambers and published materials and in the press. The city manager's recommended 26-27 budget delivered a 2-cent reduction, which is approximately 4%, with the balance directed into deferred infrastructure. While long deferred infrastructure investment is acknowledged and supported, the recommended rate falls materially short of the council's stated commitment to taxpayers and is not consistent with the operation savings, utility rate corrections, and revenue neutral framework previously identified. This agenda item formally proposes a substitute path. The council's preferable rate remains at the 28.6 commitment. In the event the council does not advance the full reduction, this item is to move to a fallback floor of 14.4% and a 7-cent reduction in the original in our tax rate as a compromise position that still returns meaningful relief to Washington homeowners.
Is there any other discussion from council? No? Okay. Hearing none. Councilman Davis, did you have anything else on that item that you wanted to add at this point? Or are we good to move to the next?
I just would like for our city manager to find a 7-cent reduction. We voted on 11 cents, and I'm making a compromise down to 7. If you could get closer to that with your next budget, that is within 14 days, so that we were elected by a record number of people in the city of Washington, as the headline promise, and although we fell short of 11 cents, I would like to get closer to that 7-cent mark as a compromise, and return a meaningful amount of dollars back to our taxpayers and get closer to where the rates were June of 2025.
Mr. Rory, as you have come on as our city manager and our finance officer, I believe I would like to reframe this as you presented us with the numbers. You've presented us with the question. Each number comes with a responsibility, and that responsibility is on council. So council would then have to make the decision on who to cut, what to cut. There is no such thing as one thing without the other. I think you presented that well. We sat through 2 days of this, where not just numbers were presented, but actually education was presented. So I don't want that to go over everyone's head as well either. And I'm saying that to say, like, council does appreciate that. I think what we may be looking at now is a decision based on responsibility of governing and not campaigning. And again, if you have presented every number to us and also presented every loss to us that comes with that number, I think that's more of a council decision now. As you have plainly put to us and clearly stated, it's up to council now to decide which way to go. I believe you've also stated that beyond a certain penny, it would put our city in dire straits. And you've said that more than one occasion. Again, Monday and Tuesday budget meetings, you clearly stated that as well too on day 1 and day 2. So I'm saying that to say that what you just heard does not belong to all council. Some council understand the logic and the math behind what you presented. So again, seeking those extra numbers or those excess numbers, other council members understand that that comes with responsibility, that comes on council to let you know what departments that we would like to see cut. Thank you.
Councilman Davis.
I would like to add that our city was not, as far as I know, our city was not in dire straits in June of 2025, and here we are in May of 2026. But if we went back closer to where our rate was in June of 2025, it's going to debilitate our city. I think that's a stretch, but yeah, it makes no sense that our city's going to fall apart if we reduce taxes to where they were, not even where they were 10 months ago.
Mr. Roy, do you have anything you'd like to add on this discussion?
Mayor, we have a budget presentation of the manager's proposed budget. According to the general statutes for the state of North Carolina, the manager is the budget officer, period. I plan to present to you a balanced budget, also as required by the North Carolina general statutes, that calls for a 2-cent rate reduction. It's not a 7 cents, not a 4 cent. And moving forward past that, every 1 cent moving forward is 2 positions. Keep it that simple. If you want me to lower it 1 more cent, that's 2 positions. 2 cents, 4 positions. You see the math? We're at that point to where now it's about cutting positions and then therefore cutting service levels. And that's the budget I'm prepared to present to you tonight for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Rory. Councilman Tyree.
So for some of us, what I believe was presented was each penny that the city of Washington has for tax rate is worth $150,000. $160,000. So for a 2-cent reduction, that's $320,000. So to continue going down below that, so for a 10-cent reduction, we will be looking at $1.6 million that we'd have to either find from some other location or cut the city down $1.6 million. And that's just the basic ways of how the budget is looking for every city across North Carolina.
That's correct.
All right. And again, I'm not a budget officer, I'm just a councilman, but you and Ms. Tammy and her team runs the numbers. So just kind of understanding that, and this again is for the public, just based on the penny, we're at $160,000 per penny. So every drop is per service or per position or per department. Or we find the money from somewhere else within the next 14 days or something like that?
Yes. No.
Thank you.
Mayor.
Councilman Davis.
What's what's our staffing level? Is it do we have 261 or is it 361 employees? I'm trying to remember this off the top of my head.
260 off the top of my head.
260, and then when I look back to, these numbers aren't coming off the top of my head, when I look back to 22, 23, we were at, I think 235, so we've added 26 positions here in the last 4 years. My big concern is, yes, every job is important, that's incredibly important, but also our residents, their money's important too. They're having to pay for this, and it's coming. They're having to cut back on their food and on their, they can't afford their mortgages. They can't afford to live here with these high taxes. So it's either the city or it's our residents, and it's pushing out some of our residents, and it will continue to push out our residents if we continue to have these exorbitant tax rates. And I think there's a clear mandate with a record number of people. You can fight against it all you want, but a record number of people voted for this tax reduction, and it's my job to fight for that as long as I stand up here. And that's the line in the sand that I want to fight for, and it's why I was elected. It's why Nick got the record number of votes, and it's why Max got on here too, as well, as a big reason. So, and I don't want to put words in Max's mouth or anything like that, but it's the people in the city of Washington spoke, and we're fighting against what they told us to do. So I'm going to do everything I can to fight for them, since they don't have a voice.
Thank you, Councilman Davis. All right, it is
Madam
just.
Mayor.
Oh, yep, Councilman Pearl.
Since I had words put in my mouth. I think what's important to recognize also, and I think all of us up here can agree on this, is that we had a new city manager come in pretty much last minute, take a budget from an interim manager that sat here for weeks and essentially didn't do anything. And what he was able to do is he was able to look at what was happening, where were some of the mistakes, where could we be doing a little bit better in terms of how we offer our services, how you see our people in your daily lives, while also delivering a tax cut. And, to what Councilmember Davis said, yes, we did run on a platform. And we weren't able to get to that number exactly in year one. But on the horizon recommendations of the manager's budget message, which is the last page, and this is the current budget submitted by Mr. Rory, it talks about how everybody in the city needs to work together as a community to move forward from this point, to help grow a sense of sustainability. For the city, our staff, our council, our citizens, everyone collectively to focus on economic development, aggressively seeking industrial, commercial, residential developments within our corporate limits, or expanding our corporate limits to help grow our tax base, to provide more services as we identify issues as they come up. Also, through doing this, to Councilmember Davis's point, we'll be able to offset some of the expenses that we require citizens to pay for that as well. So as Councilmember Davis said, I'm also committed to still producing a tax reduction on property tax. I also understand that it's possible to do this within 2 years and not within 14 days, especially when somebody came in, John, what's it been, 6 weeks? 5 weeks? 4 weeks. 4 weeks ago, and was able to produce a level of work that, in my opinion, would probably take some people years to get to that point. So it's also important to recognize that as well. And those are the words out of my mouth.
Councilman Davis.
Yeah, and I do want to make a statement that I do believe our new city manager is on a tremendous path forward. I just want him to get there quicker. That's my battle right now. And maybe I don't have the support, but we voted just a few months ago for 11 cents. I'm saying, hey, can you look at 7? And then that's just the battle that I would like to fight for the residents of the city of Washington that elected myself with a record number of votes for an unaffiliated, and record Nick with a record number of votes for any type of candidate in the history of Washington. So I think there's a clear mandate, and I would like for that to be taken into consideration when trying to get this. And I get it's tough, but we pay you well, and you're a smart guy, and I believe you can get us there.
All right. are we good to move on to our public hearing for the budget? Okay.
Let me add my 2 cents also.
All right, Councilman Horton, the floor is yours.
I would say this, since you brought up the employees, that I'm not in favor of us losing employees. My job, you fighting for what you fighting for, but I'm also fighting for us to keep our employees. Everybody don't have the luxury of getting almost $5,000 a month off in a venue that you don't supposed to have. So I think we need to think about our employees. Thank you.
Can you explain, what do you mean by 5,000 a month?
On your website, you have that your venue is about 5,000 a month, well, per event. So I employ.
That's not true.
Oh. Okay. Well, you might want to go check out your website.
I don't have anything on my website.
All right.
Okay.
I think we've digressed. All right, at this time, I am going to open the FY 26-27 budget public hearing. All right, so just so everyone has an understanding for the public comment on the hearing, I will call the names that are on the sign-in sheet first, but if there are others here who are looking to speak on the budget process or the budget itself, you do not have to have been signed in order to do that, and there is not a time limit for your comments with the budget public hearing. So first this evening will be Billy Wilson.
No, let him talk. It's okay.
Good evening, Mayor Bravo and council members. My name is Billy Wilson, and I live at 403 Cedar Lane in Washington. I'm here to address the offensive and dismissive comments made by Councilman Joe Davis during the April 28th budget workshop. While discussing cutting 2 community outreach positions, Councilman Davis referred to these professionals as girls, dismissively asked if a role was for Spanish people, and labeled them DEI positions to imply that they are unqualified. While council members Tyree and Horton attempted to provide clarity, I was struck by the silence from the rest of this board. To the mayor and the remaining council, your silence was deafening. Words matter, and unchallenged rhetoric signals that certain employees and constituents are less valued than others. I have 3 specific requests for this council. First, I request that the council reject the proposed elimination of these 2 community outreach positions in the upcoming budget. These roles are essential for a transparent city government. Second, I ask the mayor and council to issue a formal statement before the next regular meeting disavowing the derogatory language used on April 28th by Joe Davis and calling for a vote to remove him from council. Silence is no longer an option. Third, I urge you to allocate funds for mandatory leadership training for all elected officials. We need leaders who listen to and understand the community they serve. If you cannot act in the best interest of every resident, you should reconsider whether you belong in these seats. Washington deserves leaders who will grow with the community or step aside for those who will, grow or go. And it is clear that Joe Davis needs to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Ms. Shannon Russell is next.
Thank you. During the campaign season, citizens heard repeated promises about lowering taxes. But what we did not hear was the plan for how this would be accomplished. We did not hear what services would be reduced, what positions would be eliminated, nor what programs citizens should expect to lose in exchange for those cuts. In fact, many statements by candidates who sit here today, and some that no longer, were made publicly, suggesting that job cuts and service reductions would not be necessary. I think if we're continuing to go back to the voter turnout and how many votes each of our successful candidates received, we might have to consider whether or not, had those voters known how these tax cuts were to come about, whether or not they would have changed their vote. Now we're at the point where campaign slogans meet the reality of governing. If reductions are being proposed, citizens deserve transparency. We deserve to know exactly what cuts are being made and how those decisions will impact daily life in Washington. We deserve consistency and clarity in messaging. It is confusing for citizens when elected officials publicly discuss tax rate figures that do not align with the numbers presented by the city manager in the proposed budget. As a citizen, I understand something that is important about local government. Not every service has to directly benefit me personally for it to benefit my community. I may not use every program, every facility, or every service that the city provides, but I still understand their value to the broader community and to the people that rely on them. This is what community is, and this is also what responsible budgeting requires. If members of this governing body intend to reduce taxes, then tonight is the time to clearly explain what services will be reduced, what investments will be delayed, and what positions may be eliminated, and what impacts citizens that we should reasonably expect. The people of this city deserve direct and transparent answers. We look to you for leadership, grounded not in campaign slogans, but in the oath of office each of you swore to in December, to faithfully discharge the duties of your office and to act in the best interest of the entire community. Governing requires more than promises made during election season. It requires honesty about real cost and real consequences of policy decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Russell. Next, we have Ashley McNeely.
Good evening. My name is Ashley McNeely. I'm at 2006 John Small Avenue, and I stand before you tonight to speak for a group of professionals whose voices are often heard, but whose value is too often unseen, our 911 Washington Police Department telecommunicators. When someone calls for police, they are not calling during the good moment. They are calling during the worst moment of their lives, when fear takes over, when seconds matter, when clarity is gone. And in that moment, the very first person they can encounter is not a police officer, a firefighter, or a paramedic. It's a telecommunicator. They are the first voice. They are the first calm in the chaos. They are the first lifeline and sign of hope. But let's be clear. These professionals do far more than answer phones. They assess emergencies in real time with an average of 45 to 60 seconds from time of a call to time officers being dispatched. They provide safe instructions before responders even arrive on scene. They coordinate with multiple agencies with precision and urgency. They manage high-stress situations while remaining composed, focused, compassionate, and empathetic. I want you to ask yourself, could you listen to a mother scream in your ear and calm her down because her teenager just shot himself in the head? Could you listen to a wife beg for someone to get there and check on her husband because she thinks she heard a gunshot? Could you calm someone down and off the ledge of a bridge as they were trying to commit suicide? Could you listen to someone take their last breath as their house was burning down and they couldn't get out? These are real examples of the calls that they take, and then they take the next one, composed, focused, compassionate, and empathetic. They are trained professionals making critical decisions that directly impact outcomes, sometimes the difference between life and death. And yet, despite all of this, their roles are often misunderstood, undervalued, and now at risk. Cutting or reducing these positions is not a staffing decision, it's a public safety decision. Every position lost means longer response times. Every shortage increases the burden on those in the community. Sorry. Every delay can mean the difference between help arriving in time or not at all. We cannot afford to weaken the very first link in the emergency response chain. Investing in 911 telecommunicators is not optional, it is essential. They are not just dispatchers. They are crisis managers that have a combined year of service of 83 years dedicated to the city of Washington. They are lifelines to the officers and our community, taking an average of 70 to 100 dispatch or officer-initiated calls per 24 hours. Those numbers can fluctuate. This does not include admin calls coming in and being transferred to the appropriate personnel or civil matters they are able to handle to keep our officers free for emergencies. They are critical clerical staff that maintains 218 NCIC hot files to date, a Washington Housing Authority ban list with 267 individuals on it, a Washington Housing Authority occupancy list with 443 units that house 982 individuals. They keep up with 262 to-date trespassers throughout the city. That includes location, date, and time. They enter pond tickets that average to be $5,000 per year, assist walk-ins paying city ordinance violation, golf cart registrations, wanting to speak with an officer, and calling over 60 senior program participants. Providing a reassurance, familiar voice, making sure they are okay and assisting them with anything that they might need, because no one should be overlooked. This is just a few examples of the many hats they wear. They are the steady voice guiding someone through the unthinkable. If we truly value public safety, we must value them. Today, I ask you to recognize their impact, respect their profession, and protect their roles. I also invite each of you to schedule a time and sit behind the consoles before making a decision that could eliminate one of the most important roles in this community. Put on the headset and see just how vital the Washington Police Department telecommunicators are to the law enforcement officers and citizens of this city. See that they are not a duplicate service. Because when the call comes in, and it will, we the citizens are all counting on that voice on the other end of the line. Let's make sure it's there. Before I go, I also have stats for all of you guys if you want to look at them before we make a decision.
You can provide them to the clerk. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that is everyone that we had on our sign-up list for this evening, but if you are here to speak for the budget hearing, if next person would like to step up to the podium. Just remember to state your name and your address, please.
My name is Zach Setawong. I am at 103 South Reed Drive. So I also ran for council. Thank God I didn't win. I would like to say this is, you know, when I ran, there was some people in here that I did talk to and tell it was totally impossible to lower the budget, the tax rate to that amount. Because if you actually sat down and read the budget, went through all the numbers, it was either tons of cuts or impossibility. The only possibility was maybe a small amount for seniors at the top. But people ran on what they ran on. And now we're coming up to it and we're finding out that it's not possible. At the same time, you know, being in here during the budget meetings and stuff, before that also too is, you know, maybe if we weren't 20-something million in debt from before, we'd be in a position where we had money, so we would be able to cut. So, but those are things that are in the past, and we have to look going forward. At the budget meetings we were in here before, and I love the fire department, and I love the police department. I used to be a police officer. But we have to look at the costs that they cost our city. And nobody wants to cut any job at all. It's just human nature. Nobody wants to do that. But there comes a point where if we keep spending so much, there may be no town to protect. There may be no fire left to do because the majority of people move away because our town shrinks. So those are tough things. When I see the fire department put up a slide up there, and it shows that we had, was it like 600-something% increase in training because we are understaffed, I know that if I'm understaffed, I don't have time to do a whole bunch of extra training, at least at all the businesses that I've had. So when I see stuff like that, I can see it. But at the same time, nobody wants to cut these jobs. I wouldn't want to cut them. I don't think it's right, you know? We told these people the jobs were there, we hired them in. It's just a wrong thing to do. But at the same time, we promised a whole bunch of people we were going to cut their taxes. Maybe we knew we couldn't do that. Here's what I would suggest. Suggest you come up with a plan moving forward from what we can do here. Maybe it's a freeze on our hiring to then where we get to a point down the road to where we can catch up to a percentage of people in the population to what we're doing. Maybe it's a long-term plan that tries to get taken over by the next council and the next council after that. So good luck to you guys. It's, I'd hate to be in your position. Also, I think Max, I think you should be the next mayor pro tem. That's all, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Settlewong. Who's next? Anyone else?
Madam Mayor, council members, my name is Rodney Bullock, and I'm at 3004 Taberna Drive. I am not much into politics, and I came to Washington to rebuild a program. And in doing that, I realized one of the ways to do it was to engage with the community. And I'm only speaking on this particular department because I work with them extensively. The Community Engagement Department, I'm sure as every other department in the city of Washington, are extremely excellent in what they do, not because of the paycheck, but because of their heart for the job and the people for which they serve. It would be extremely difficult for me to have built anything without the community, and I say that because a lot of what I do is community support and community work, particularly with the young people of the city of Washington. Now, this is where the disconnect comes in for me. The city of Washington, it seems, is steeped in politics that affect the children of Washington that have no idea what these politics are doing or can do to them. And in that, to remove any parts of that particular department would mean more disparity for the children we're trying to raise to be able to run the city of Washington effectively when it is indeed their time. They need an example that's going to lend to them the importance of every person. These jobs are not dollars. These jobs are community involvement. It moves the community forward, whether it costs $1,000 or whether it costs $2. It is extremely important that the children of the city of Washington can have a council that they look up to. Mr. Davis, I understand you sharing your thoughts and your feelings about particular departments, but I would like for you to consider, and this is not derogatory toward you at all, I would like for you to consider that maybe your thoughts at some points were received as very hurtful to folks who have poured their hearts into the city of Washington. And I don't believe, not in my heart, I don't believe that those are the way that you meant it. That wasn't your sentiment. But please know that these folks that work for the city of Washington love Washington far beyond the paychecks that they receive. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak this evening? Okay, hearing none, at this time, the public hearing is adjourned. All right, we will move back to the new business. Next on our agenda is a resolution establishing the Washington Voluntary City Services Contribution Program. This is an item put forward by Councilmember Davis, so at this time I will yield the floor.
During recent budget deliberations, certain residents, organizations, council members have stated publicly that all current city services are essential, that current staffing levels should be maintained or expanded, and that the city should refrain from reducing the property tax rate so that revenues remain available to fund those services and personnel. The resolution attached takes those convictions seriously. It honors them by creating a lawful, accountable, IRS-recognized channel through which residents who hold those convictions may put their resources where their stated values are, without raising taxes on residents who do not share those convictions or cannot afford to share that burden. Under North Carolina General Statute 160A 279, North Carolina cities are expressly authorized to accept gifts, donations of money, real property, personal property for any public purpose. The proposed program implements this existing statutory authority with the structure, transparency, and reporting requirements appropriate to a public institution.
Madam Mayor,
Councilman
I
Peralta.
believe we may have skipped over the manager's message in the budget hearing.
I apologize.
You want to settle with him?
Say that again?
You want to go ahead and settle with Councilman Davis what his
Okay.
resolution is?
Okay.
I just think it's important that people hear what he
Yep.
has to say as well. Just want to make sure we didn't skip past it.
I thought that the budget presentation was coming in our items from the city manager. Sorry. Does anyone have any discussion to add to Councilman Davis's resolution?
Well, I do, as a matter of fact. When I said I wasn't going to say it, but I think it's a little convoluted to run on a platform of being fiscally conservative and, you know, fighting for a tax break for people to put more money back in their pockets, and then turning around before we even do it to say, donate more money back to the government. It's our job to fund the aquatic center, the airport, Parks and Rec, personal development for our employees, public safety, general fund operations, and CIP projects. I mean, I know the federal government did this back in the 80s where you could donate against the debt. I don't think a city has ever done it, to my knowledge. I don't even know if it's legal, to be honest, but those are my feelings towards this program.
Any other comments from council?
I have a question. Sorry. If I'm hearing this right, what's being suggested is we reduce taxes. Councilman, like what you're suggesting is we reduce taxes by having people pay into their favorite program? Yeah, it's a question.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great opportunity for residents that want to fund certain programs that they really believe in. Like someone told me yesterday, hey, our trash collectors, they do a tremendous job. They have 4 guys, and they're doing this whole city at a very shoestring budget. And like, hey, I would like to give more money to our trash collection department because they do just such a tremendous job. And there's several people tonight have come up and said, hey, certain parts of the city of Washington are very important to them, so I'd like to give them an opportunity to help fund those departments above what we can fund and add more funding to those departments. And kind of put your money where your mouth is, because we've got a lot of people that don't want I don't say a lot of people, I think there's a very small minority of people that don't want a tax decrease. But hey, if you don't want a tax decrease, you can put some money into this fund and support your favorite program in the city of Washington.
So that's your way to reduce taxes, is to continue sowing division within the community, and some that wouldn't get as much because people need that service but can't afford to pay into that service, they just go without.
It wouldn't sow division.
Subdivision?
It wouldn't
I don't live in
sow
one.
division.
Oh, sow division, okay. So, all right, thank you.
I'm sure Councilman Tyree, maybe Councilman Horton could speak to more examples over the last couple of years, but in my short tenure, we had a very generous sponsor or donor for our 4th of July fireworks. We had a very generous donor to bring the Washington History Museum to life. So I don't think there's anything stopping from residents of Washington who have a passion or a heart for something specific within our community that they would like to get engaged in or involved in from a financial standpoint without an official resolution being adopted.
Yeah, but you're talking about funding an event, you know, something that people come to, like the fireworks donations, that's for a specific event, and the other things too. This is talking about our operational costs, and we tax people that live here to fund our operational costs of the government already. I mean, we get some money from the state and the federal government, but the majority of it comes from the taxes already. We shouldn't be asking for more money. We should be asking for less money, in my opinion, because our job is not to sit here and collect money to make government run as a for-profit. It should be to give money back or to provide services that meet the demand of the community and don't exceed it, which we talked about a lot during budget. I feel like we've exceeded it, but again, if we can't fund the program, you don't do the program. You don't keep asking for more and more and more and more. That's how we got to the point that we're currently at.
Thank you, Councilman Peralt.
I got a question. So this may be to the, our city lawyer or the city manager. Is that even legal?
We're open for business for donations anytime. But in terms of this, I do not know.
As your manager said, a city can accept donations, and historically, yearly, you receive donations from various individuals and entities, and there's already a mechanism through which your accounting finance department takes care of those funds. I read through this on page 190. There's a paragraph that says voluntary contributions are intended to supplement, not to replace, lawful general fund appropriations. The existence of contributions to a designated fund shall not by itself justify a reduction of general fund appropriations to the corresponding service in any subsequent budget cycle. I had a hard time understanding how this program would run given that language, but as the manager said, and I just said, we have received donations over time, and we know how to deal with those.
I guess my question is more so, I know we can receive donations. However, if we pick and choose what we pay into, for instance, the trash, people that pick up the trash. So if I can't afford to have my trash picked up, that's going to cause a more issue because trash is going to be everywhere. So then we're going to be dealing with a much bigger issue. So I don't get it. I don't get it.
Councilman Tyree.
I'm gonna deal with what I feel like is the elephant in the room. This came about, I think, from the discussion of two positions over our 2-day time, speaking on the budget. So again, we're talking about under-resourced, underserved communities in some spaces, and then we're talking about some of our elderly who are resourced, however, they have limited mobility or availability to get out and be amongst friends and the rest of the public. So what happens if this would come into play and all of a sudden, well, I don't feel like paying into that. Does that elderly person no longer get contact like our outreach does now, weekly? Do we no longer have events for our elderly population to partake in because one side of the community said, well, I don't want to put my money there? Do we now go without the youth on a certain part of our community that maybe are under-resourced from their, like, families maybe working overtime, 2 or 3 jobs at a time, and just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. So now for them to be able to have a place for their child to play, i.e. the Boys and Girls Club or the parks that we have in our city now, do we now say, well, we have to shut those down unless you give us another $200 a month to keep these going just for you? Like, I'm not sure how this is really adding up to where we are to not sow division and bring the community together and build that bridge instead of that wall. So I guess that was my question to you. How does this not sow division?
Voluntary, so as it says in this section 6, voluntary contributions are intended to supplement, not to replace. This is to supplement. So like, let's say someone wants to give to Parks and Rec, they want to fund the basketball program above and beyond. Say I want to give $10,000, I want to give it to the WYBL. This is what that is for. And I would be happy if everyone would agree. I mean, I'll give away, if you guys want to vote for it, we can give away our council salaries to this, or to whatever programs y'all want to give it to. I'm fine with that.
Is there a motion from council on this item this evening? All right. Hearing none, I'm going to reopen the public hearing, sorry everybody, and yield the floor to Mr. Rory.
I don't know if I even want to talk right now, but I will. Speaking to the issue that Councilman Peralta did, is after 4 weeks, today represents week 5. There's a lot of moving pieces associated with what's been going on in Washington. That goes back to the campaign. We talk a little bit about the organized chaos and how all those come together. At the end of the day, I want to start with basically 2 statements before I get into some of the detail. Is that cities don't run on emotion or illusion. They run on math. It's just that simple, okay? So we have to do the math. And second to that, it is a council city manager form of government, not a council campaign manager form of government. So I cannot deal with campaign promises. I can't look back at those types of things. I have to focus on where we're at, and where can we go, and how do we do that. And so one of the favorite ways of doing that is that some of you have seen this before, and it's worth talking about. Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here, said Alice. That depends a good deal on where you want to get to, said the cat. I don't much care where, said Alice. Then it doesn't matter which way you walk, said the cat. So long as I get somewhere, Alice added as an explanation. Oh, you're sure to do that, said the cat, if you only walk long enough. Lewis Carroll from Alice in Wonderland, right? Frequently, over the last 4 weeks, I know at least 3 times I've been asked, what are my priorities? As the manager, what are my priorities? I always talk about where are we going? What is the collection of us going to do? My priorities matter not. It's really a matter of public policy of what the board, the council, and what direction they want to go to. So what we're lacking is a long-term vision, a long-term strategic direction of where are we going. We have to first address that issue. If we don't address that issue, then any road will take us there. And so, but do we end up where we want to be? So we need to be focused on that. And so this budget, this in particular this year, is kind of a starting point. I think it's a resetting point that we need to focus on where we're at 10 years ago. That's 10 years ago, okay? Where are we going 10 years from now, I think, is the most important thing. Instead of living in the past, we don't want a vacation in the past. We want to look at where we're going. Statutes in particular with the council manager form of government, I've said this before, and I think it's worth noting that we are required to adopt an annual balanced budget. We cannot deficit spend. So we have to make funding decisions, and the council has to govern. They have to make and adopt a budget, a spending plan, as a matter of public policy to address the city council priorities. Not John Rory, city manager's priorities, but the city council priorities. As the city manager, I am the budget officer, period, not the council. I am the budget officer. So I have to present to you a balanced budget for adoption based on what I believe to have come out as the council's priorities. That's how I'm structuring this thing, not necessarily what my priorities are. Mission. What are we here for? This is an interesting little thing. I'm not going to read it all, but to build upon citizen trust. This is where we start having conversation about transparency, sharing information, don't hold it inside, right? We want to provide quality municipal services to preserve and protect Washington's unique character. The interesting thing that I find about this is that this is the mission statement for the city of Washington in the back of council chambers, adopted in year 2000. It's 26 years old. What is our strategy? What is our mission? Where are we going? What do we look at? This is the important thing for the city to focus on. Where are we going? How we're moving forward. Budget in particular. 4 weeks ago, on April the 13th, you were presented with the manager's proposed budget that was essentially or put on the website for review. And in that budget, the general fund had a $26 million revenue, $26,139,073. We can't forget that $73. Finance will have a heartache if we don't mention that $73. And the expense was $26,139,073. We had and presented to you a balanced budget. All in, when you add the enterprise funds to it, they were also balanced at $56,099,128 and balanced at $56,099,128.
Mr. Manager, you said 56 million.
Yes, and that's what it looks like from here. I hope that is it.
5 million.
No, that is 56 million. Those are the enterprise funds.
Oh, total, okay.
Yeah, so you add those up to it, okay? Phew, I'm glad. You already caught me once tonight. That April 13th budget, on at least 3 different occasions now, I've presented to the council, and if anyone waited to make a motion to adopt that budget, I've had 0 motions made to adopt the April 13th budget that was balanced, that actually had, right, as its source of revenue, 48.5 cents per hundred, which generated $7,510,000. Administrative charges, $4,989,000 and some change, and then other taxes, basically sales tax, at $5,162,000, and a fund balance appropriation of $528,000. I'm not being exact here. I'm just talking about those round numbers, right? The expenses were down $1,064,000 in that budget. So from our current budget right now to what was presented on the 13th, the expenses were down $1 million. It too called for the closure of the license plate agency, closure of the garage, RIF of 7 personnel, and 8 frozen and unfunded positions. We have continued to talk about that budget on the Lunch and Learn on April the 22nd, budget workshop on the 27th, and again a budget workshop on the 28th, talking about some high-level stuff because there's only so much room, only so many things that we can do before we tip the scales into fiscal irresponsibility. So I am proposing a budget that I believe to be fiscally responsible, not fiscally irresponsible. And that's very important for us to grasp. Going forward, the budget before you May the 1st, you'll notice that the revenue is $24,870,000 and the expenses are $24,870,000. So how did you lower it from 26 to 24 million? That is the question. Notice also the difference in the enterprise funds are down a smidgen, a little bit, but not a lot. But they too, as presented to you tonight, are balanced. So let's talk a little bit about those things. And so coming forward to now, the ad valorem tax rate recommended is 46.5. That's the 2-cent reduction that we've heard about. which basically equates to about $320,000. You'll notice here it shows up as about $310,000. This is based on the collection rates and all kinds of things that move with that. And so now our ad valorem tax is down $7,202,000 instead of $7,500,000. There's the delta, the difference, $300,000. Administrative charges are red. They are the same. They haven't changed. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then the fund balance appropriation is roughly 50% of where we started. We've got our fund balance down appropriation to $219,000. It's down 50%. From current budget to proposed budget, your expenses are down $2,166,000. It still has the license plate agency closure, all right, as a state responsibility. I have moved to restructure the garage, not to close the garage. And so I'm not just closing it and getting rid of everybody. I'm trying to restructure and keep somebody on there part-time to help with the solid waste and the sanitation. Not necessarily the police cars, the fire vehicles, those are all handled outsourced somewhere else. But when it comes down to the sanitation, let one of those trucks stop. We need somebody to be able to address that. So I've restructured that into the budget that's before you. There's still, now it says RIF of 11 vacant positions. This was a point that a lot of people, or not a lot, but maybe some had misunderstood, in that these were positions that were already frozen and vacant. All right? I'm not going to continue to freeze and unfund positions and keep them on in the head count and the payroll with no long-term strategy to fund them. That makes no sense to me. If they are essential positions, then they should be staffed and they should be funded. They shouldn't be used as a budgetary tactic just to balance the budget and frozen and unfunded. They're not being filled. They're not going to be filled. RIF is 2 full-time, 1 part-time. That showed up in the original budget as well. Reorganized P&Z to 2 positions instead of 4. I'll talk more about that as we go forward. And the building inspection, 2 positions going forward. You've heard some of that tonight about what does that mean and how does that impact everything from zoning to code enforcement to the building inspections. I get it. I too am one of those inspectors. All right? And so I've done a whole career, another lifetime away, as a fire inspector. I have had to organize around planning and zoning when you don't have enough development going on. You can't fund 4 positions when you only got so much going on. This is whole about growing the tax digest. Those positions too were vacant. All right, so what are we going to do and how do we move forward? In a nutshell, this just gives you kind of a high-level look of where does the money go. And it's worth noting, right, it's worth noting that the big departments are the police department and the fire department and the EMS collectively. I like police, I like fire. Okay, that's not the point that I'm making, is that when you look at the budget, they are 40-some% of the total general fund budget, police and fire. What's not known and doesn't show up in a lot of these documents is that we budget over $1 million a year in overtime. I'll say that again. We budget $1 million a year in overtime. The excessive use of overtime is just bad management. All right? Bottom line. So now when you start thinking about that, what does it do going forward and how do you look at that? You look at the structural, you look at the staff, you look at the response, you look at unit hour utilization. We'll talk about all of those things. But we're still at a balanced budget, and that's where the dollars goes per department. And you can highlight any one of them you want to talk about. Aquatic Center. We talked about the athletic rec program, senior center, Brown Library, for example, this whole idea of donation. The library has a thing called the Friends of the Library. They do fundraisers and get donations all the time. It helps them buy books. It helps them do different things that are outside the regular general fund budget. 3 basic elements. I've been preaching this for 4 weeks, and I am not going to miss the opportunity to say it again. All right? In every one of those budgets, in every one of those department line items, it's basically 3 components. Those 3 elements are personnel, operations, and capital. If you underfund one, you're jeopardizing the program. The goal is to balance those funding so that you can provide an effective service level. If you don't, then you ended up running into a problem. And this budget highlights some of those problems that we can see as horizon issues or forecasting going forward. So forgive me for reading to you. The objective is to combine those three elements to develop a service delivery strategy. This is in the manager's proposed budget message. All right? This is straight out of the budget message. That meets the needs of our shareholders and our customers. For example, the primary function of the police department is patrolling the community. A patrol objective is to respond to urgent calls for service with an average response time between 5 to 7 minutes. The key there, 90% of the time. Urgent calls for service, 5 to 7 minutes, 90% of the time. Not dog barking, loud noises, whatever it may be, okay? But these urgent calls of service. Now, we could talk a little bit about Part 1, Part 2 crimes, all the different stuff that we will talk about in the future, but right now I don't think it's really relevant for us to kind of get into the weeds and the details on it. However, additionally, a 60% to 70% unit hour utilization rate should be established to ensure officers have an adequate time to patrol the community outside of urgent response. In simple terms, we need a patrol officer, that's a personnel expense. We need the patrol vehicle, that's a capital expense, and we need the vehicle fuel, an operations expense, to respond to those service requests, and we need to have them available to patrol our given neighborhoods. There are 4 patrol zones in the city. So if they're running back and forth over 67% of the time, they're not patrolling. So we need to make sure that we're focused on how many officers do you have to deliver this service 24/7, so that you can get that officer on deck and at the call 5 to 7 minutes, 90% of the time. Why not 100% of the time? You just can't be all things to all people at all times. No matter how much you try, there's going to be cases where they'll be tied up, okay, on for various reasons. It might be 2 or 3 of them on the same one. An example would be a domestic call. It is really a bad idea for an officer to go to a domestic call by themselves. They need backup. They need somebody else to go with them. And this is another way that you have to calculate what these calls are and how they're doing it. I've heard it. You're riffing positions in the police department, therefore you're defunding the police. That is just nonsense. So I'll say it right here. It's nonsense. What we're looking at is how do we make sure that we have adequately equipped officers on duty 24/7, 365 to respond to the requests of our shareholders, our stakeholders, and the needs of our citizens. That's it. We're talking about defunding the police or any craziness like that. We're talking about how do we fund these things so they're an effective service level, not just something that's randomly going on. Fund balance policy, another critical component. On April 13th, I sat right here, first day, and you guys have to adopt a fund balance policy. This was presented to you as part of our budget workshop on April the 27th. Could have been the 28th, I'm just not sure right now which one it was. But this council has had a vision. They're looking forward to what the future looks like and have adopted a fund balance policy of 35% of basically unassigned dollars based on the general fund expenditures. All right, so it's 35% of what the general fund is. And so the metric down here gives you kind of an idea that you need to think about when it comes to this fund balance. So the policy requirement, based on this adoption, is that we need to have $6,409,326. Once again, it's a finance number, so we got to remember the 326. However, what we have is $6,814,258. So we are exceeding our unassigned fund balance policy by roughly $404,000. Let me say that again. All right, this is going to come up, and it's going to be very critical when we start having conversations about how the ball moves and how the ball bounces. So right now, 35% means that you got 4.2 months of operating expenses, and you've got $404,000, let's just call it cash. It's a little bit different than that, okay? But unassigned fund balance. Now, what happens if you have a major storm in September? You can deplete that fund balance in short order. That's why you see that number down there. It says 50% target, and then underneath it, it has a reversion rate. That's just a simple reminder to me to talk about reversion rate. Mathematically, what this means is that we have an adopted budget. I expect and sign a budgetary contract with all the department heads that at the end of the year, I'm expecting for them to operate at 98% capacity, not at 100% capacity. So I expect them to give 2% back. Now, I've had former council members say, well, that's just not enough, that's not enough. Well, think about it this way. If all of our department heads operate at 98% funding instead of 100% funding, and there's a 2% reversion rate, it means that at the end of the year, June 30, 2027, we could be adding $400,000 to our fund balance instead of using fund balance. Remember I said it's $200,000 in the budget? So now your fund balance could grow, and your target is that 50% target, not just a 35, because it could be depleted very quickly. And you got to be thinking about that. And you got to be thinking about that for every single fund that you have. And wait till we talk about electric. Yes, please.
John, if you will, excuse me, I know it's written there, but could you just kind of state it? We didn't just pick this number just out of the blue. This came for a reason.
Yes, this number is basically based on LGC and regulations, and number two is GFOA, and it is used as a measurement of our funding capacity and of our credit worthiness. So you'll hear me typically refer to that as protect the cash, protect the cash. That's how they measure whether or not we can go get a bond and get it at 1.5% instead of 4%. And so those are the pieces that are moved with it, the bonding agencies, GFOA, and then LGC in terms of fund balance. LGC typically hovers around 24%, but even they'll tell you that that's not enough. If you make it personal, everybody in this room has been told that you need to have at least 6 months of reserves in your savings account in case it rains. That's personal financial advice. It applies to the government as well. You need to have those fund balances available because you never know what's going to happen. If you have a storm, and I'll get to the electric, but I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. You have a storm that takes out the grid. Everybody expects our electric people to work. The only way that the electric funds their operation is through usage fees. So if they're not selling any power, guess what they're spending? They're outrunning their headlights, right? And so you got to make sure that fund balance is there to keep paying them, keep them working, so they can get that power restored as quickly as possible. Just a simple little thing to think about is that if you don't have it available for them, what happens? The second component with electric is purchase power. If they see an increase in purchase power and they don't have any fund balance available, they will outrun their headlights and spend more than they're bringing in, which spells disaster. And that's where we're headed. We'll get there too. The manager's proposed budget for the general fund is balanced. Basically, that's just what I told you. It's balanced at $24,870. We've made some changes, some staffing changes. We've done some reorganization. Vacant positions are no longer funded, frozen, whatever. Okay, they're vacant. We're not funding them. And it comes with a 2-cent tax rate reduction to 46.5 or 0.465 per 100. At the end of the day, it's worth noting what that means. Okay, I've talked about this in some of our budget workshops either. I could sit here today and make an argument, keep the tax rate 48.5. I could make that argument, okay? And it would be perfectly legitimate argument. But I don't have a problem doing the 46.5 or the 2-cent tax reduction because when we start looking at all the utilities and their increases, you're trying to balance out all of that stuff. So that's why you're looking on the ad valorem side and you're looking at the other side associated with that, the utility rates. The enterprise funds, jumping right into it, we can talk about any of that other stuff, general fund, if you want to, a little later. They are balanced. This is just kind of a high-level look, and I'm not going to talk about all of them, okay? It's important. All of them are important, okay? But I'm going to just focus on the ones that people see routinely, monthly. They see their water bill. They see their sewer bill. They see their electric bill. Okay, they see sanitation. So it's worth noting, for the first time, and the mayor caught me, if any of you have seen online the budget in brief, there is an error in that because I don't do math well, but the mayor caught me on it, so we will make that revision in terms of what our capital requests are and what we're funding. However, online in the budget document, there is something called the budget in brief. What it does is takes 300 and some pages and tries to condense it into something that is consumable by the public. It's really a high-level look. If you have any additional interest, This leads off the 300 pages. You can dive line item by line item, look at the budget if you like. But this is just a high-level look for you to kind of focus on it. And if you'll notice, it gives you kind of the different funds and what they're for. For example, the electric fund covers power purchases and grid maintenance via electricity sales. $39 million in this year's budget. $39 million of that 56 that we were talking about, right? The water fund, $5 million. The sewer fund, $4 million. Stormwater, so forth, and, you know, kind of in descending order. The solid waste fund, $2 million. If there's any that's important, they're all important. But I'm only going to talk about the ones that you see monthly on your bill. And so how that kind of moves. That didn't turn out the way I thought it would, but nevertheless, it's still okay. This one is the electric fund. It is balanced at $39 million. It basically has a $1.4 million debt service built into it. The projects that they're currently working on is the AMI meter system project, and they're seeking grant funding for $7.4 million for a new substation. Now, think about this, all right? This is what I mean about watch those balls. Watch how it bounces. Watch how all of these things connect. That $7.4 million for a new substation could be critical to the development and the growth in our tax digest when it comes to both residential and industrial. So in the absence of that, do we have the capacity, no pun intended, to provide the power to this subdivision? This is a critical thing, or the industrial part. These are critical things that we need to be focused on. How do we get everything through our distribution network, this substation and this substation? Proposed change in this budget is I'm going to slow down here. All right, I'm going to slow down. A 20-cent increase in the utility base rate. I'm going to say that again. Everybody sitting on this dais is going to realize a 20-cent per month increase to your base rate. In addition, it calls for a 1.25-cent increase per kilowatt hour. So the base rate is pretty flat. Everybody experiences that. The kilowatt hour, the 1.25, comes down to usage. So if you have a 3,000 square foot home that's 100 years old with no insulation, you're going to pay a lot for your electric bill. There's not much I can do about that, right? If you have a 500 square foot apartment, I'm living basically across the street in a little apartment, mine is going to be a little bit lower. But on average, with the increase in the electrical rate and the base rate and the per kilowatt hour, the monthly bill on average is going to increase about $25 a month. That's a lot, okay? That's based on using, I think it's 3,000 kilowatt hours, but that's $25 a month. So when you talk about 1 cent on your tax rate going down, okay, your ad valorem tax, which is the largest source for the revenue for the general fund, that means the average homeowner with a $200,000 home is going to save $20 a year. $300,000 home, $30 a year. $440. You see the math? So it's about, you know, when you're looking at what's going on over here, and you don't miss what's going on over here. They are connected, and you got to be focused on all of those.
So on this electric side, what, I see the seeking grant part of it, but what, could you give us a little bit more backdrop on why you feel like this has to be changed, like raised-wise to an extra $25?
So if we don't do this rate increase now, after all the years of trying to hold steady and doing some back and forth with the rate increase, I've got to cut the budget in front of you for 6 months, $1.8 million, and for 12 months, $3.6 million. So in the absence of this rate increase, you're underfunded in the electrical department of their operation expenses to the tune of about $3.6 million for the entire year. That's the math.
So when you say underfunded, help us understand more what you mean by underfunded for what? Is it positions? Is it growth? Like what?
Yeah, they're dependent on their revenue from electric sales. And so a couple things that are happening. Duke Energy is raising the rate 4.5, Shane, 4.5, so basically 9 cent, then another year. So it's going up, 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 and up. And so we can't absorb that cost with what our current rates are. So we have to pass that cost on because we don't produce power, we purchase power. So right now, I'm actually glad you brought that up. Where are we at with our purchase power? If we're purchasing, I'm gonna use gasoline as an example. If we were used to purchasing that at $3 a gallon, and now it's $4 a gallon, you can see where every one of our departments are underfunded in the general fund budget. It's the same thing with the electric fund and our purchase power. It's gonna cost us more going forward, effective, it's already in effect. It's already April, it happened in April. And so it's gonna cost us more going forward to purchase that power. Second to that is all the operational expense associated, whether it's this little gigawatt and that little gigawatt and all that kind of stuff. Those are naturally impacted by just regular inflationary rates. And so those are the things that I mean when I say that we're, based on the budget of what we're looking at, purchase power and regular inflation, we are underfunded if we don't take and implement this rate increase. Probably should have done it years ago. One of the things that I have missed so far that you will find in the budget message that is really causing a lot of heartache. I just got through talking about the fund balance and the appropriation of fund balance and why you need to have savings, you need to have 6 months of operational expenses. If you look to the manager's proposed budget message, the last sentence when it's dealing with electric says that fund balance is unavailable for appropriation. I talk about a 35% or 50% fund balance. Guess how much fund balance is available in electric? Is that right? 0. There's no fund balance. We have got to do this.
So, prior to you coming on and just some historical for the community, there was some returned funds from, I believe it was Duke through Electric Cities, and each city that was a part of Electric Cities received a check, or most of them did, when a payment was completed. And the previous council decided to give the monies back to the people, and I believe it might have amounted to maybe 5 cents or 10 cents, nothing to really adjust. Excuse me. So, but what we were told, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this, was do not make any major adjustments to anything because this money is not going to be what you think it is in the next year or two. So you have to start preparing your community because there may be increases that we're seeing. And that didn't come from within, that came from Electric Cities and Duke saying we're going to potentially be charging a lot more money. So the checks that you cities are getting, don't think that these checks are a sign of good things to come. This is just you finished making a payment over 30 plus years or so, and this is the residual from that payment. You can do what you want to with it. We decided to give it back. It didn't amount to a lot, as you know, because you spoke to it. But this is why we didn't make any other adjustments, was because we were told a bigger amount was coming. We didn't expect it to be this big, this fast, but there are some other bills that kind of kicked in and did that. So I just wanted to give some historical context to why we did what we did and why we're sitting here now.
Yeah, and it's fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what was done. It's just here we are, right? And so you're trying to keep tax rates low, trying to keep electric rates, water, sewer low. I get it, okay? But at some point, you got to adjust those things to keep up with the times, and here we are today. You know, one of the things that I kind of glossed over was when I was talking about the administrative charges, we're taking $4 million, I think it's $4.6 million, from the utilities and transfer them into the general fund in what we call administrative charges. So with the budget and the long-term horizon issues, my goal right now, okay, is to first zero out appropriation of fund balance. That's the first goal. The second thing is going to reduce the amount of administration charges coming from the utilities into the general fund. That costs cents, that costs dollars. It's not free, there's a cost to it. And if you think of it this way, so administrative charges are percents of or based on head count, all these different things that are coming over. So as the general fund budget goes up, we draw more of administrative charges out of the utilities. You see this math? So it goes up, so we draw more. And so we're further straining the utilities. We've got to turn the tide to where we take and, hold the tax rate, think about it, what that's going to look like, and then try to get it to where we hold the, quit appropriating fund balance, because we're spending our cash reserves when we do that. So we got to zero that out. And then second to that, we got to try to reduce these administrative charges, because at the end of the day, we also have to fund CIP. And so all of these things are coming to us right now, and here we are.
So,
Please.
Simply put, so I think, I'm trying to remember. I think on the general fund, you said that there's 4.9 million in admin fee transfers. So 4.6 of that is coming just from the electric department?
No, about 2.5 million is coming from the electric department.
2.5 is coming from the electric department?
Yeah, 4.6 is coming from all utilities.
Okay, understood,
So whether
understood.
sanitation, water, sewer.
But still, so we're funding other programs from the electric fund, and now they don't have a fund balance to handle if an emergency happened or a truck had a catastrophic failure or a one-time hit, basically.
That's almost accurate, yeah, 98%. There's always a little bit of wiggle room. I
Sure.
don't want to be absolute, but that is, yes, we don't have fund balance for catastrophic failures of the truck or for storm events, so there's nothing to appropriate. Now, where would it come from? You're going to keep them working, right? You're going to keep them working, right? So I would suggest that then you'd be doing some type of a general fund transfer back to the electric department to keep them working, keep them flowing, and that reduces the general fund balance. It's a vicious cycle. We got to kind of get this arrested, is my point.
So quick question. I just want to make sure I heard you right, that you said that Duke was going up. Their rates are going up.
Shane, can you help me confirm? Let's get to the subject matter experts, if you don't
Okay.
mind, Councilman Horton.
Yes, sir. In April, we had a 4.5%, basically your
Raise that
kilowatt
mic
hour.
up, Shane. Raise that mic up.
In April, we had a 4.5% rate increase on our kilowatt hour per charge. We also had an increase on our demand charge. Our demand charges are for 1 hour a month. That 1 hour a month cost us about $1 million on average for just that 1 hour a time. That kilowatt hour for every, we'll go with 28-day months, 27 days and 23 hours, it runs about $500,000. Well, that $500,000 is where your 4.5% come in, and then we had about another 50 cent per that demand charge that went up. It's going up again and over the next 4 years, 4.5%. They're hoping that with the merger of Duke One coming together, that we'll be able to reduce cost, but that merger is costing us also.
Got you. So I got two questions for either you or John. First question is, do their rates go up based off the population of the town? And last question would be, being their rates are going up, what if we was to stay the same?
Well, if the rates go up and we stay the same, then we're gonna, I think the phrase was used, outrun our headlights. That's what's gonna happen. Either that or just won't have anybody here to keep the lights on because we won't be able to fund it. The prices will go up. There's multifacets to your electric bill, and to sit here and just shoot off the hip from it. But the way we get our electric rate charge comes from known things. And the known things that Duke perceives in the year prior is what designates what they're gonna charge. The unknown things come in what we have called true-ups. There's different riders. I'd be glad to sit down and show all of you how these things work. But those true-ups come, and then they're affected. Usually it comes in like April. April is when all of the rises and falls. Why April? I don't know. But that's when the rises and falls come. The rises are coming again next April. But those true-ups happen when gas goes to $4.19. Natural gas goes up when regular gas goes up. Cost of making materials go up. All of those things cause an influx. I'm hoping it's not worse than 4.5% if fuel cost pushes everything else up. But what happens is the following year, they're like, well, our costs were more. Then we get a true up. That's an adder onto our kilowatt hour charge and our demand charge. So that 1.5 million right there, that's just that, then you've got these other charges. Our true ups are stacked up for like the last 3 years because we stretch them out over like 18 months. I say we as an Akimpa because you throw that on somebody, and those are based on your consumption, not your number of people, just your number of power consumed. Again, I could show it to you a whole lot easier. I've got a stack of bills on my desk from since 2009, where I've been looking at rate increases and true-up charges and things like this, trying to guess or make some kind of figure about what it's going to cost us in the next years to come. But did that suffice?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
So I have some questions as well, too. One, everything kind of affects everything else, right? Of course. So I hear you talk about the transfers. We're going to work towards stopping that. So pretty much what I'm hearing, electric can stand up on its own and start to make the improvements that we need to, of course, build more like home-wise or just kind of tighten up the structure that we already have with with our substations and things of that nature. So my question is then, if the transfers stop, how does that offset the tax rate then itself?
The transfers cannot stop, okay? That's the true cost of the transfers. The general fund is dependent upon the transfers just to function. So the question is not, do they stop? The question is how much.
Right.
So we need to continue to stop drawing so much.
So it's not the idea that we're stopping
Yes.
transfers because
No.
anybody doing anything illegal. It's just reduce the transfers, still allow that to assist in the general fund to help
Yes.
offset tax rates somewhat, but allow the electric piece to function on its own well, right?
And see, and that should be kind of a long-term strategy and a long-term plan.
Right.
There's nothing that's been done that we would say is illegal. It's perfectly appropriate to use, if you will, profits from the utility to help offset the taxes in the general fund. There's nothing wrong with that. So it's not a question of, do you do it? Yes, you do it. But it's a question of how much, because the more you take off of that,
Right.
the more risk you put on the utility to be sustainable. That's my point.
So what I'm hearing then is, again, it's the idea of, seems like you and the subject matter experts have identified, hey, there's some upcoming need here that we're not going to be able to afford to take care of if we continue the same amount.
That's correct.
Okay.
We've also met with the Electrical Advisory Board,
Right.
I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, forgive me, the timing, and we're looking to revise, we're in year 6 of a 10-year CIP plan, and so we're looking to revise that because everything goes up, cost goes up, so we need to revisit that CIP plan, those capital projects in the electric fund. And so another 2 things that we want to do, Hope is here for water and sewer, Shane is here. We've already received quotes to look at bidding out or trying to take and assess what our rates are, and so that we can get a long-term rate plan that looks at those projects, that looks at those rates, and, you know, to be just kind of a brief term, we don't want to fly by the seat of our pants.
Right.
We want to be able to look at something horizon, long range.
So my second question is kind of going on to what Councilman Horton was asking too. If we don't go up, what is the stress that brings to you in alignment?
Tammy?
What it brings to the city, because if the rates don't go up, then we can't, you've got 2 different ways of looking at your rate, or not 2 different ways, but 2 different forms. We talked about in there, your 20-cent increase on your utility base rate. That is, the base rate is just for you to have a meter sitting on the side of your house. That's what your base rate, your base rate is. That 0.125, that's a penny and a quarter of a penny. That right there is for your kilowatt hour demand charge. That right there goes directly over to them. Your man machines, what it takes to run that electric department, that's what that's for. That base rate in there is what helps compensate and maintain CIP projects and things like that. Now, if you stay the same, you keep drawing that was $2.5 million that comes out of here that pays for the people that actually make sure the bills get paid, make sure the bills get collected, do things like that, then one of us isn't going to get paid. Either the men's keeping the line on the up in the air to keep the power flowing, or the ladies and the men that are downstairs collecting the bills and paying the bills.
So yeah, so that was my question, and like, it seems to not just, I mean, it's not, excuse me.
It's not just for substations.
Right.
It's operational
It's
as
not
well.
just for substation, but it's also for the ones with boots on the ground that are doing the work, going up and down the poles, checking the homes, ensuring that people have the electricity that they need, especially during our season when, you know, the wind picks up and the lights go out, or the unfortunate moment where someone may strike a pole and you know, we have something else there, but we have to get those guys on the scene. So if we continue going in the route we're going, then what I'm hearing is pretty much we exit out our account, and it's hard to keep good people, it's hard to keep folks trained, it's hard to get folks to go up and down that pole like they're supposed to, and we kind of end up in a space that we don't have the funds to pay the right people and service our community. So it's not just for substations only and building grand homes and all this other stuff.
No.
Got it.
Correct.
All right.
Tammy Hill. What's the number?
Wanted to confirm a
Okay.
couple.
Good, all right.
Can I confirm a couple of things
Thank
too? Mr. Lewis.
Shane,
Jane.
Councilman Davis got a couple
Oh,
questions
just had
too.
a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I just want to confirm, because someone else in the industry told me this, but we're looking at 4.5% each year over the next 4 years is kind of what's expected
Yes, sir.
for Duke Energy increases?
4.5% for it started in this past April. It's supposed to come around again.
Right.
It is scheduled.
So
Come
are we
around.
gonna, this time next year, we're here, Lord willing, are we gonna be coming back to the residents and say we need another $300 a year, or is this gonna cover?
What you're looking at, that 0.125 cent increase per kilowatt hour is for the kilowatt hour charge that's being increased.
For this 4.5%?
4.5% kilowatt hour. Remember that. That is your usage, just like cubic feet of water coming out of the ground, that 0.125 is your kilowatt hour going into your house.
Are we gonna need to do that again next year?
That is what we are also being increased by. That 4.5% increase is on us.
The
for
short answer
our
is yes.
Kilowatt hour
that's
charge.
what-
Yes,
yeah.
the short
So-
answer is yes.
So not missing the forest for the trees. So right now, for our residents, we're looking at somewhere between a $20 to $50 property tax decrease. And then I get Duke Energy is the big part of this, but also we have a hand in this as well, because how we're funding our city government is from the profits from you, and you're pretty much defunded to the max. And then we're gonna ask our residents for an average resident, $300 a year for these Duke Energy increases. But I just wanted to make sure that's kind of the two big numbers our residents understand. And it looks like this could happen over the next 4 years. So we're looking at 300, 600, 900, 1,200. So additional 4 years from now, your utility bill is gonna be $1,200 more over the course of the year, or $100 a month.
Yes.
Okay.
And I would like to add, if you would like to save on that electric rate, we have a program called load management.
Yeah.
You put that on your water heater, put it on your air conditioner, and I know it doesn't pull your AC off full time, it cycles your air. During those demand times, they're not every day, it's during those demand times. You
Right.
can help your city help you by hooking up a load management switch on your house today.
Because you're paying huge money during
I'm
those
paying
high
that same
demand
kilowatt
times.
hour The
Yeah.
same kilowatt hour that you get for that 1 hour, remember I told you it's $1 million is
Right.
about that 1 hour a day. What would be, what would we pay, 12 cents? What we pay for that 1 kilowatt hour is $23.58 for that one same kilowatt. The day before, the same day, the same time, we were paying pennies for. That 1 hour. So if you want to save your money, if you want to help your city,
Right.
get a load management switch, put it on your house, tell your neighbor to do it too. Will you be inconvenienced a little bit? Sure. My wife gets mad at me when the kid takes a shower too long after load management. But guess what? It comes off, and it also gives you a credit on your bill. So you get a credit on your bill, you're helping reduce what it costs for your city to provide you power, and you're putting money back in your pocket.
Right, we really need at a city level, it sounds like we really need a push for that for residents with these increases. I would like to add one last thing and then I'm done. And this is probably will get me in trouble, and I'm really good at doing things that get me in trouble. But for the county, can we look at the county residents fund this?
Already underway.
Okay.
His question is that do we charge more for out of city versus in the city? And the answer to that is yes. And should we charge more going forward? The answer to that is yes.
Just so our residents won't get hit with this burden as much as the county, since our city residents, they're funding all the city services, and the county really isn't doing that, so.
We're going to charge Franz more.
Sorry, county people.
I had to joke on it a little
Shane.
bit, but, okay?
Thanks for coming up, Shane. Load management, sounds like a great donation. I think at the end of the day, though, we as the governing board now, part of leadership is making hard decisions because it's the right thing to do, and I don't think there's anybody in this room who would be happy if their power went off and didn't come back on. I wouldn't. So, if in order to make sure that the electric department can continue to operate going forward and the city can continue to operate going forward, to me, it's just one of those difficult decisions. But also back to the manager's point, increasing your tax base, increasing your residential, increasing your industry, that helps offset these costs to everybody as well. Go ahead.
Mr. Manager, I think as we move forward, programs such as what was presented, I think, for council, that's something that we should ensure the city knows citywide, even if it's a door-to-door effect, because again, everyone doesn't get online to see what our city page is doing. Believe it or not, everyone doesn't watch us. So I think that's something that just kind of looking at where we're headed to with the cost increases of things that we have no control over. I think any way possible that we can get the community on board with programs such as that. I know this is the reason why AMI was talked about so early on too, because we knew costs were coming associated with certain things to help people out with wasteful water that is not on their part, but if there's a leak or something that you haven't found, that will alert us immediately to let you know where that's coming from. So, but just programs like that, if there's a way that you could come up with or think through how to get that program down to the
Admittedly, I don't know what we do, but typically we do inserts in the bills because they get a bill. Whether they're online, website, or whatever, they get a bill. And so whether they read them, I don't know. But have we done inserts in regards
I'll
to
be honest.
program management?
I'll be absolutely honest. I mean, I know it's like gas prices. I can complain about it, but I need gas to go from. So
Yeah.
electric bill that comes in, I'll be honest, is like, but I like my lights to come on. So everyone doesn't pay attention to the fine print, but I think a responsibility of a city as a whole, again, to build that bridge is to ensure that everyone understands what they're reading as well. Because a lot of the conversation, like I've just known it over time and kind of listened to it over time, so I get a little bit of it. But before this, I would have had no idea what you were talking about. You're the subject matter expert, so it's supposed to go that way, right? But for the everyday person, it's like, I hear that, but also see this amount. So explain why I'm paying this, and how can you help me with this amount?
Noted. A kilowatt is 1,000 watts. Gotcha. I'm gonna move on. More good news. Rates are going up for water too. This is built in as a public policy decision that the board made at some point in time, that water is increased each year by a factor of at least 2% or based on the CPI. So the next few slides that you see, you'll see a 2.4% CPI increase in the utility base rate. Once again, this is the base rate associated with capital projects and things that we make. So the estimated residential impact for your water bill at that 2.4% CPI, for 3,000 gallons usage is going to be 20 cents a month or $2.40 a year. That's the math, okay? It's just, this is built into the schedule. It's built into where it's just kind of automatic. And, you know, I hate to be the one who, most people aren't going to notice 20 cents on their bill, $2.40, right? I get it. But still, I want to be transparent and say, yes, it's going up as well. This is what's happening. And so the other little highlights there to the right underneath the water tower, this is some of that other stuff that people just don't really get or don't pay a lot of attention to, but Hope and her team does in terms of our capacity is basically 5.45 million gallons per day. We store about 3.8 million, so we can store it. We come from groundwater sources or whatever. And right now, our average daily flow is 2.1 million gallons a day. That's pretty critical because it's going to speak to the issue about growth in our tax digest, growth in our subdivisions or whatever it may be. So these are engineering calculations that they have to think about in terms of where is the city going. They're trying to play to where the puck's going to be, right? Not where it's at right now. Where's it going to be? And so when you think about that from a sewer perspective, you'll notice that our sewer plant is about 3.65 million gallons per day. That's our capacity. We're at 59%. They're already beginning to plan for the expansion of that sewer plant. Now think about that. See that 59%, 2.5 million? And then your water is daily capacity 2.1. So that's what you're putting into the system. You're at 59%. And I'm probably going to get this wrong, but I'm going to say it anyway. So please don't take this as absolute. But basically, when you get to about 80% of your capacity, you have to be beginning the planning stages. And 90%, you better be digging a hole somewhere, right? To expand the capacity of your plant. So mathematically, if you've got 1 million gallons left, you divide that by 225, that tells you basically how many homes you can build. That's the math. That's the engineering calculation. So we can calculate that, and that's already underway as part of our studies and some of our projects down there. That too is automatically increased at about 2.4%, which is based on that CPI. Once again, 3,000 gallons of usage means that the monthly bill is going to go up 95 cents or roughly $11.40 a year. It's always, sewer always costs more. Therefore, it's always higher, okay? Just keeping it simple. Here it comes. Solid waste. This one is of particular interest to me because if the water don't cut on, people call, right? If it goes somewhere or don't go somewhere, they call. If you don't pick up their trash, they call, okay? These are pretty big deals. These are the services that our people expect. These are the things that we have to ensure are sustainable. So we can't have 2 sanitation trucks broke down all the time, right? This is that whole garage component that I talked about restructuring. So when one of those trucks has a flat tire, somebody's got to be available to change that tire, all right? So that's why I'm restructuring the garage instead of just eliminating it. And if you look at this, it's a 5% increase on commercial tipping fees. These are bills that we pay to take the stuff somewhere. So basically, you're looking at an estimated residential impact of about $1 per month, $12 per year. That's pretty standard across most municipalities in the state of North Carolina. Not sure of outside the state of North Carolina. But I'm particularly interested in the tonnage, right? 279 tons. So double that, and that gives you kind of pounds, right? 2,000 per ton times 279, that's the number of pounds that they're hauling monthly. 360 tons of commercial waste. 31 tons of recyclables, so that could be a whole nother conversation. 370 yards of yard waste, 232 cubic yards of leaves. Can't burn if public pickup's provided, you can't burn inside the city limits, so you gotta think about those things. And then 70 tons of bulky waste annually. These guys do a hell of a job. All right, so let's just call it what it is. They do a hell of a job, and I apologize for that French, because I think it's worth expressing it that way. They do one heck of a job. So my hat's off to them. Early in the morning, backing up, doing different things. They do an excellent job. Budget in brief. I think I'm
Hey,
getting
John.
to the end there. Yes, sir.
Really quick. You're good? All right. So the water, sewer, and sanitation, those are previously agreed upon to have this, I think you said a CPI increase every year?
Yes.
Okay, so that's not something new?
Not really. You're not really acting on it. It's already part of a public policy of the council.
Okay.
Now, clearly, past council can't bind a current council, but I think it's in the interest of the sustainability of those systems to go ahead and keep that public policy going forward.
Thank you.
John, can we go back to stormwater?
Did I skip
jump
it?
over there?
Did I miss it? I don't even know if I put stormwater up there. I didn't, did I? All right, I didn't put it up there as an individual slide, but it's part of your budget brief, so yes. Stormwater fund is $2,274,000. I can pull it up.
Yeah, I have 2,274,372. 2.274372 is what I have.
So it is in your budget in brief, even though I didn't put a slide up there, okay? So what would you like to? This is the rain tax that is an unfunded mandate from the state of North Carolina and EPA and all that kind of stuff.
That's where I'm going with it.
Okay.
Could you please give us an idea of why we have storm, and this may sound, but could you help us understand why there's a stormwater and why there's a $2 million revenue and expenditures of 1.872907 general with a debt service of 401,000? Could you help us out with stormwater somewhat?
Shane already referenced it earlier, man, money, machines, and materials, how do we provide a service? And I do not recall off the top of my head the number of miles of drainage ditches we have to maintain. I did look at that today, but it just completely evades me. But it is listed on our website, stormwater, of the number of miles, the number of intakes, all the things that we deal with that. It's a lot. And so this isn't just money that we're just, stormwater projects, you gotta make sure it goes where it needs to go. It can't pile up in the road, but I just cannot recall off the top of my head what that is.
What does it do? And I know that's a strange question, but if you could help me understand, what is the purpose of stormwater management? Like what does it do?
Let's say prevent or reduce flooding, all right, in simple terms. I don't remember the number of inches they have to capture off the top of my head. So basically, they're supposed to, you got all the impervious surface in the city. And so now that water doesn't go into the ground, so it has to go somewhere. If it doesn't go somewhere, then it floods and then it builds up. So stormwater is to take that water and make it run uphill and go somewhere else instead of sitting in the parking lot at Food Line or Walmart or wherever it may be. And so, and it takes it through a series of pipes, culverts, drainage, all the things that come with it to take it to where it needs to be, back to the river. You got to control the runoff. You got to capture. I think it's like 2 inches of rain or something. You remember? Oh, is that right? And so then you have all these calculations on 100-year storms, and it's a math calculation. I just don't remember it off the top of my head. It's not as complicated as I'm making it sound, but it's complicated enough.
Could you cut it in half or do without?
Stormwater?
Yeah.
I want to say no and yes, but I would be glad to look at that. You have projects, this council has a scheduled special workshop related to all of our capital projects and all we're doing, and I think that would be a worthy topic of conversation on May the 28th.
So no, I was asking because it's been asked, why can't we just do without stormwater, or can't we just cut it in half just to take care of like a few roadways? So I was, again, going to subject matter experts in this space to let us know why it's important to have stormwater and what it actually does for the community as a whole. So it's not just an idea of a drain or two. There's a lot
No.
more that goes into this.
It's a lot, but it's really about moving water. That's what it comes down to, and getting it out of your way.
Thanks.
Sorry, next time I'll put a slide up there on that one. Budget in brief at the end, there's the electrical funds. The airport fund is roughly $1 million. And so I didn't put it up here, but I'll be glad to talk about that, Zach. I think I just had it as the, kind of in the total line right down there, right? $1,197,000. We've received a lot of grants for the Warren Field Airport. This year in particular, we've reduced that budget by like $64,000. And so our goal there is to have that self-sustainable with no general fund subsidy. If you look at the tax dollars that it actually brings in, you could say it's there, but you really got to think about what that is to do that math. And so a lot of people will go, well, I'll be candid with you. It's a question from the field, and it's public hearing. You don't mind, Mayor. At the end of the day, I can't tell you how many times I've had to entertain the question that the airport is so that people can fly their private jets, and they use other terms for that, by the way, that I'm trying not to use. But there are reasons for it, and I don't know if it justifies subsidies going forward. At some point, that airport has got to be self-sustaining. It's a general aviation airport, so it's really not going to make money per se. It's not like an RDU or something along those lines. But I've reached out to the airport manager. They have increased their lease rates, rental rates, tie-down rates. They've increased everything, trying to get this thing to self-sustaining. We're almost there, just not quite yet. I know they don't completely answer the question, but
That's the question. If most of us can't use it, we're paying for it for a few, like 10 super rich people.
and I will tell you that, and I wouldn't want you to consider this as an absolute quote, but right now, the look is about $100,000 a year in subsidy, and so give or take a few more. So if you look at 1 cent on your general fund tax rate is 160, so that's what, 0.75 cent, give or take, of your general fund that's going to the airport. Rough math. All this
John,
is showing is that
John.
all the budgets are balanced.
Excuse me. Airport-wise, the city owns the airport, correct?
Yes.
If the city chose to not fund the airport, what happens?
I'm going to sing the song that we have received federal grants and state grants, so we are therefore obligated to fund the airport. But it becomes a question of how much do we keep taking, and then we have to keep giving. You don't have the option of unfunding the airport. You have to fund it based on all these grants. But remember, these grants are sometimes gifts that keep on giving.
Right.
So we have to be very cautious of how much we keep taking, because we have to keep giving, and we have to keep that in balance.
So the big amount that the airport received, even though there was no match required by the city funding-wise, there's time-wise that goes into each one of those grants, from what I'm hearing. And not just that specific one, but overall. So if there's a 10-year requirement to manage those funds, then you have to keep it for 10 years, right? Just saying. So as the owners of the airport, we still kind of get caught in that space. And this is just to kind of explain, because I've heard this question already, of why do we even have to fund the airport? Why can't we just do without it and put that money elsewhere? Well, when money goes into the airport that doesn't come from the city, grant-wise, from our local representatives or whatever, so that $30 million that was given to the airport, then that may leave the owner of the airport on the hook for X amount of time to continue funding it, with hopes that you get a return on investment sooner than later. So
We're almost there, But, you know, just to make sure that I say this kind of clearly, everything has a cost. Direct cost, indirect cost, opportunity cost, but everything has a cost. Nothing's free.
To your point, there is an industrial park being built, which gives an opportunity for business, for jobs, for people to benefit from the airport being there. And the industrial park is directly connected to the airport and the runway. So you could say the airport benefits the community with that. And our manager has a saying that I love. I use it a lot now: burn the bridge and move past it. So I'm going to burn the bridge and move past it. In the past, there were opportunities brought to the city for jobs, hundreds for some of the opportunities. And the city and the former administration and manager just decided not to move forward with it. They were jobs that people could have done entry-level manufacturing all the way up to mid-level management. There's other companies that are still interested in the airport for investing here. There are conversations that we have all the time. And when the industrial park is built and, you know, the investments, as they keep coming, more opportunity is created. But with everything, it does take time. I spent last week in Raleigh with the economic development partner for North Carolina and showed them what was going on with the industrial park, and their question was, well, why haven't we known about this yet? So is it a problem of it doesn't benefit the community, or is it a problem of maybe we haven't managed and marketed the asset correctly as something that contributes to the community? I think that's the bigger question in this instance. I don't think it's necessarily fair just to say it doesn't do anything. I mean, the Wheels and Wing Air Show probably had, what, 2,500, 5,000 people throughout the course of the day, you'd say, that were there, and that was from all over the county. People coming and enjoying it. That's my piece on that.
I was going to say something, but to Councilman Peralt's point, you've already had a tenant that was ready to go in the airport industrial park. They were going to purchase property in the park, and they were going to contribute a large amount of money to the infrastructure needed to put a road in, and we just weren't timely enough to make it work for them. The thing I was going to your question, I'm not aware of any kind of clawback from the two large, I call them appropriations, not grants. The two large appropriations that we got, I'm not aware of any kind of clawback from them. But every year, we do receive money from the state and federal DOA. And every year that you receive that money, it renews a 20-year grant assurance. And most people don't even know anything about that grant assurance. One of the grant assurances is that you will, I believe it is, that you will operate the airport for another 20 years. So every year that you get that money, you re-up that obligation.
I'm going to close with tying a couple more pieces together. When you look at every one of these funds, right? You talk about the appropriation of fund balance. Basically, you're taking from your savings account to fund operations, okay? When you're doing administrative charges from the utility, you're bringing it over to the general fund to fund operations, okay? You're doing transfers from electric to fund operations. All of those are legit. It's just a question of how much. And then finally, one of the things that we talked about is that when Shane talks about truing up, I think that from my perspective, right, and from my opinion after 4 weeks, right, we are in a position where it's time for us to true up, okay? We got to true up in terms of what our tax rates are. We got to true up in terms of what our administrative charges are, what everything associated with how that comes together. For example, one of the biggest conversations, and I've got two members of staff, and I'm going throw him right up under the bus, he's out there. So Mitch Harris is our safety guy, and RM Flowers is the fire chief. I've tasked both of those with developing a 10-year CIP, capital improvement plan. And so the reason why those two are selected in particular is because Mitch works with HR, and HR usually is the one who deals with all the insurance proceeds and stuff, the properties that we actually have insurance on, whether it's facilities or equipment or whatever. But in this case, I'm trying to get them to look specifically at rolling stock, because you're trying to connect personnel, operations, and capital expenses. If you cannot buy the police car in this budget that you're seeing tonight, there's only replacement of 2 police cars. So you got to ask the question, why only 2? Okay? If you've got 30 or if you got 40, you got to ask the question, why only 2? And so then you'll find out that you have no measurement, no standard, what's the matrix? And in this case, we do. And so we should be replacing our cruisers, our patrol vehicles at 120,000 miles, okay? Because at 120,000 miles, they got 300,000 of idle miles. So it becomes kind of this safety issue in terms of how they speed. So where can you go to the budget and look at replacing 5 vehicles 3 years from now? Where can you go to the budget and look at replacing this is in the budget message as well, by the way, a fire truck, a ladder truck, a ambulance, a excavator, a backhoe for public works, for stormwater, for whatever it may be? You need to be able to go to one spot and see what the capital improvement plan for all of our rolling stock and all of our fleet. Now, what you'll be able to do then is do a kind of a financial calculation and do some financial forecasting so that you could look at how that rate's going to go up every year. You're going to have to bring it in debt. You cannot cash flow this, okay? So it's going to go up every year. So you need this on a 10-year, either a 7-year or a 10-year rotational cycle, depending upon the cost of the apparatus or the vehicle. And so if you take a $65,000 police car and finance it, now I know everybody's going, $65,000, yes. By the time you add everything to it, it's even more. And you finance that, you've got to have that to where it rolls over so that you have debt coming off when you're bringing on new debt. Debt coming off when you're bringing on new debt. That is what's meant by creating intergenerational equity and financial smoothing. We are not in a position to have financial smoothing because we have no long-term plan to replace our rolling stock. It's another truing up issue that we got to face with the budget. So pulling from here and all this kind of stuff might balance the budget, but that's not the point of developing a spending plan to carry out the public policy to make sure that we have sustainable infrastructure and our services are provided high-quality services. We have to look at everything to do that. We can't turn away and not look at one or the other. We've got to look at everything, personnel, operations, and capital, to make sure that we can have sustainable delivery of services. So I'll close with that. You've already asked your questions, but if you have any more, I'll be happy to entertain it. If you close the public hearing, as far as members of our citizens or whatever, I'll stay here all night if you got any questions.
Councilman Tyree.
Excuse me. I just have bad allergies, I promise. The RIFs.
Yes.
Without getting to where they're coming from, how'd you come about those RIFs?
All of them were already currently vacant or frozen unfunded positions. And the only 2 that were really RIFs were garage and what am I forgetting? License plate agency. So those 2 were in the April 13th budget to close it. If you don't close the license plate agency, you got to put $148,000 back into the budget. And then probably something similar associated with the garage, but we've restructured the garage.
So the LPA was brought to the city as a, excuse me, as a courtesy. So I definitely understand that it's a state function. Excuse me. I'm good. So there was a plan in place that we spoke about, like 3 or 4 months to see if there's another contractor?
Yes. So in the budget right now, we basically put the state on notice that we're going to withdraw and not fund the LPA. but we have 4 months of time in there, so July, August, September, October. Hope is not a tactic, but when you identify, right, the punch that's coming, it may create opportunity to have some conversation about the private sector taking it on, doing different things, but right now, we've had no conversations about that. So yes, there's a 4-month period that it stays open, and you can look at different alternatives.
So those were the two rifts under the 11 frozen spaces. Those were the two rifts that you were talking about?
Yes.
It was one part-time, one full-time, or something like that?
No, the one part-time was grant, and so we already have a grant writer, and we've also received some funding opportunity to do some grant. And so the others were just the LPA. I'm talking in general terms.
So since it was a hot issue, so the cultural services positions are not included on that RIF list?
They are not in the budget to be RIFed.
Thank you.
Any other questions from council?
I got one final comment,
Mr. Rory?
okay? July 1st is July 1st, and I would suggest to the board that that's when the real work begins. There's a lot of things that we need to do, okay? And we can't do them in a short space of 4 weeks and trying to get to a budget adoption based on the general statutes, but we will have to revisit a lot of things, beginning with the capital projects on the 28th of May. I think we have fee schedules scheduled to go in front of the Rec Advisory Board on the 18th of May. So you're starting to look at, the usage fees associated with electric, water, sewer. You should be looking at usage fees associated with recreation, with all the things that we do. Most cities are moving away from taxes to more usage fees, but that's still a balancing act. Okay, I get it. And so my point is that this doesn't end it. July 1st, the real work begins. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's a lot of stuff that we need to look at. I've heard even tonight in terms of like P&Z, planning and zoning, those are 2 vacant positions. The inspections, the permit fees, all the things. I've got on my desk an increase for the permit fees. That should be an operation that's funded through permits, not through subsidy, not through taxes. But I just can't get to that in this short period of time. We're going to just have to deal with that going forward. And I think that'll be a huge issue that we'll start looking at things topical rather than in general.
Makes sense. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Rory. We appreciate you jumping in and the effort. All right. At this point, the budget hearing is adjourned. We've got one more item on our new business, proclamation designating Saturday, May 16th, 2026 as the Washington Day of Prayer. This item was put forward by Councilman Davis, so I will yield the floor.
The city of Washington holds a unique place in American history. It was incorporated in 1782 and was the first city in the United States to be named in honor of George Washington, a distinction that predates D.C. by more than a decade. This heritage situates our city within the very civic and religious tradition. The proposed proclamation acknowledges days of public prayer have been continuous feature of American civic life since before the Declaration of Independence. The First Continental Congress, September 1774, was opened with a prayer by Reverend Jacob Duché, who read aloud Psalm 35. The Continental Congress later issued multiple official calls for days of fasting, humiliation, and prayer during the Revolutionary War. George Washington, President by proclamation dated October 3, 1789, called for a national day of public thanksgiving and prayer. Every president from Truman forward has issued a National Day of Prayer proclamation pursuant to public law 82-324 in 1952 as amended by public law 100-307 in 1988. The constitutionality of government acknowledgement of prayer in legislative settings has been settled by U.S. Supreme Court in Marsh v. Chambers 463 U.S. 763 in 1983 and reaffirmed by the town of Greece v. Galloway 572 U.S. 555. Civic days of prayer that invite participation by residents of all faiths according to their traditions are well established and constitutionally protected exercise of municipal authority.
I'm going to take this time to offer that, and Madam Clerk can correct me, proclamations do not require a vote of the board. There is an application process through our clerk that can be followed, and then I can sign off on proclamations. We did one today for Boater Safety Week, and we did one 2 weeks ago for National Denim Day.
So I got a question. So what makes this more different than National Day of Prayer that's every first Thursday in May?
This is specific to, for our city, for the city of Washington.
Oh, so every first Thursday in May, I know at least for the last 5 years, because I was heading it up until this year, that the city, we come together every first Thursday in May. So I don't see why we need 2 of them, because that's gonna, in my eyes, that'll cause some division lines. So why?
So is it, oh, go ahead, sorry.
Go.
Is this something that you wouldn't want to support, a day of prayer for the city of Washington
It's not.
itself?
We already support National Day of Prayer every first Thursday in May. So it's already supported. Quick question, was you at the last event last Thursday for National Day of Prayer?
I wasn't.
Oh. So
I support it.
So why, if you support it, I mean, I get we all busy and whatnot, but I still don't get why we need 2 in the same, because I pray every day. So why do you feel that we need 2 instead of
I
just
think
support that
more
one effort?
prayer is better. More prayer is better than less prayer. But if you don't want to support it, I mean, the council cannot support this. If they
I'm
would
not
like
saying
to
I
support
don't.
it.
I'm not. Don't try to make it sound like I don't support prayer, because I do. My question is, why do we need 2? Do we need 2 President's Day? Do we need 2 National Denim Day? I mean,
This is specific to the city of Washington.
Councilman Tyree.
I think to ensure that we are staying focused on the separation of church and state, why don't we just continue to
That
follow?
doesn't exist.
Councilman Davis. Councilman Tyree has the floor.
My tank is full, the gas light don't work. To separate and to keep our focus, we have a National Day of Prayer that allows the freedom for people that I fought for to show up or not. They don't have to support everything on the agenda. You can pray, you cannot pray. You have the freedoms to do that. I wore a uniform that ensured that people would be able to do that, even with you speaking to that, whatever you just read. But I think that's where we are as a city. We have a National Day of Prayer. It's been identified nationally, it's in the title. So could we just move on to the rest of the story, the rest of the things that we have to do with the city? That's where I would be with that, so.
Is there any motion from council on this item this evening?
I move that the council adopt the proclamation and designate Saturday, May 16th as the Washington Day of Prayer, and that the mayor and city clerk be directed to execute and publish the proclamation in accordance with the city's customary practice for civic proclamations.
Is there a second? All right, hearing none, the motion dies. At this time, we'll move on. Are there any other items from our city manager, Mr. Rory?
I've been a barrel of good news. I think I'm done.
Under any other business from the mayor and other members of council, do you have anything else to add this evening?
Just a brief idea, moving forward, once we pass the budget, if, and I'm not sure how this works, but just an idea, maybe council and mayor, we could go over it, manager. If we could do something a little bit more forward-facing. I know we have a lot of conversation up here, and there's a lot of things that the community may or may not understand fully. If we could find a day or a time that maybe we could take in questions from the community, like a forum, and that way they could have specific councilmen answer to certain things that they may want to hear from another councilman and not just certain ones. But just a way to open it up and show, hey, we do want to move forward. We do want to have these conversations. We do want explanations. Some things like the kilowatt per usage per hour, per $1 million per hour, $100,000 an hour, like where are we going with that? But just an idea to kind of toss around. I know we have some more time until July 1st. Not trying to put anything else on your plate, right? But maybe that will give us the opportunity to talk to the community or get them to ask us questions, and they can talk to us and tell us exactly what they're thinking and feeling.
Thank you, Councilman Tyree.
I-
Councilman Horton.
Yeah, I do want to say this, not to beat a dead horse, because I know by the time I get home, that my name probably be slandered on Facebook and WITN, because I didn't vote for the prayer. I'll say this, that if we're gonna do it, let us make the first Thursday in May the day of prayer, and leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilman Horton. All right, the only thing I will offer for those who might not have seen the announcement, Washington 250 celebrations are underway. The announcement went out on Facebook, and their website is forthcoming. Our tourism director has been working hard with our community partners to bring that to get that to fruition, which will kick off July 3rd with the grand opening of the new Museum of the Pamlico, a Powdered Wig 5K on the 4th of July, fireworks, live music, red, white, and blue sales throughout our downtown. So I would make that plug. I hope you guys will come out and participate.
Madam Mayor?
Councilman Davis.
I want to speak to a couple of things. One, the separation of church and state, that doesn't exist in the U.S. Constitution. That came about from Thomas Jefferson. He wrote to the Danbury Baptist Convention. He wrote to the Danbury Baptist Convention to keep the state out of the church, not the church out of the state. That wasn't an official government thing, so that's all made up. And second, it just seems like the chickens have come home to roost with raiding the utility funds and increase in city services, 25 employees, and so it just puts us in a very precarious situation where residents 4 years from now are going to be paying on average possibly $1,200 more a year because we weren't responsible with how this city was governed. So I just want to leave it at that.
Where's your math
My math.
on a $1,200 a year increase?
We just talked it over earlier. It was $300. And then every year, there's going to be 4.5% increase according to Duke Energy. So you just add 300 each year. So then we're looking 4 years from now, $1,200 for
I
each
didn't
resident.
see an electric rate study come. That's a pretty serious statement to make. when
Yeah,
people trust what
$100 a
we
month.
say.
That's tough. It's really tough. It's going to be tough for residents here. It's going to push more people out.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
We are adjourned until May 28th at 11 a.m.